from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest. You're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
Episode 68 of Beyond the Blast Doors live on a Saturday night. I lost my voice because I was at Dueling Pianos and I was just going absolutely ham inside this old brewery, and I was being handed drinks and some desserts. And my buddy David was like in charge of the event, and he absolutely crushed this thing, raised thousands of dollars for local youth.
Which is awesome.
And got a bunch of professional people really drunk, and they weren't so that professional.
And that was my entire objective for the night.
Because the more they drink, the more they spend. This is Beyond the Blast Doors. We actually do talk about Star Wars. Jesse Buck, David Gilbert, David Amilati. And we have a full show to talk about. I will hopefully have a voice by the end of this episode. But I'm really excited. And we're talking about The Mandalorian. We had that EW article drop. We're talking Kenobi. We're talking about Legos. You heard about the UCS Star Destroyer that dropped, and we're going to spend some time talking about that on this episode. But David has actually been spending the better part of like 9 months building a First Order Star Destroyer.
And it's done.
So do you want to show this thing off real quick?
I do. It's stellar. It's beautiful. And you're going to yell at me if I bump the microphone, but here it is all wrapped up and done.
Looks like a dagger, you know?
I think so. I think it's really cool.
Pretty cool, yeah.
It came out a lot better than I was expecting it to. And
So-
there's a lot of little minifigures in there. And,
He's opening it up.
We built almost the entire
Oh my gosh.
thing.
This thing is wide.
You want to slide that over your way, Jesse? I don't want
Yeah, can you kind of lift it up too for the viewer?
Yep.
So if you're listening to this, you're definitely going to want to watch at some point on YouTube. If you're watching live with us right now, obviously, this is pretty incredible. Just how wide it is. You'd say about 2.5 feet wide, almost 3 feet wide.
Give or take.
I mean, when you have the whole thing unfolded, obviously it folds back up. But what I like about this is the different scenes, right? Because you get the command bridge. I like the detail. Even though it's sticker detail, you get that with the droid.
You got a little lounge area for your stormtroopers. You get a little command area
Mm-hmm.
over here with different stuff. And then you get some more different consoles here where you can have little
Snoke has a
minifigs
seat
that
up there
work
with
with
some
this.
hologram.
Kind of looks like the Emperor to me. But,
And you even get an evil BB unit too. That's awesome.
Really?
the BB-9E.
No railings. It's just very consistent with Imperial engineering, right? No railings whatsoever. But a really cool build. David, can you just kind of like talk about like was the way in which you built it how you expected? It seems like there's some pretty cool methods being used here, especially with the hinging that allows the entire thing to unfold like it did.
The hinging was pretty awesome. The one thing that's kind of fancy to me, which I wasn't expecting when I built it, was this little device up here, which lets me hold the whole thing. So if I wanted to hang it, I probably could. But really, I was really kind of amazed at how the little side flaps came together, which is probably the most complicated part of the entire thing. A lot of little pieces, a lot of little clip-ons here that are just 2 segments or so to give it a little extra texture.
I think our cosplayer friend would call that gribbling.
Gribbling?
Greeblies.
Gribblies. There we go. See, it
Gribblies.
just adds
Pretty
detail,
stellar.
texture.
It's a little bit of a play set over on the side. They got the little cannon shooters out here, so you get a little splash of color too. And so I'm very excited with it. It's gonna be a very nice shelf piece because I'm sure as heck not gonna try to break it.
But would it be fair to assume that you will find yourself at times swishing this around in the air?
Maybe.
Pretend fight. I mean, you have Krennic shuttle, so you don't. Well, don't you have like an Imperial TIE fighter or something you can pair this with?
I do. I have Krennic shuttle. I have an Imperial TIE fighter. I like the Imperial ships, which is one reason why I wanted to grab this one. And so this is gonna sit right next to the rest of them. We'll just get it out and stroke it, kind of like a cat. I think
it's purring.
Good Star Destroyer.
You got it. That's.
And we're going to talk about another Star Destroyer that really's got me going later.
We are, but
if
it's
anybody,
not as. But we will make the argument that it's not as cool as a First Order Destroyer in your hand, which you might think is a stretch, but it's actually fairly accurate. I'm gonna let you put that back up. We also want to say hi to everyone in the live chat. We've got Lords of the Long Box with us down there in the live chat. We got Snowbug778 giving a shout out to Jesse for his helmet. So he really likes the helmet. We have it back on display. For a period of time, it was just like the centerpiece of our table.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to be the centerpiece of the table. It just makes.
I think right now it's appropriate with all the Mandalorian.
You made it with your hands, and we're gonna be talking about Mandalorian the next 2.5 years, right? So it's gonna work out. Before we dive into our main topics, the Star Destroyer that David teased, the Mandalorian that we just talked about. Let's just remind you, you can always be watching or listening to our conversation. I should say, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. You can also get us on Patreon. But the different ways you can follow our Star Wars conversation if you like to listen rather than watch. Also, don't forget, we got the icons on that same screen: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at BTBD Star Wars. Also, proud sponsor of our show, the Fantasy Shop, Maplewood, Missouri, proudly serving St. Louis since 1981, proudly serving us as a sponsor for more than a year and a half now. And they sponsor our comic book talk, which we will also dive into because we're talking about a slew of comics from Age of Resistance. We got some Vader talk. We got Galaxy's Edge. So much we got to catch up on to. We'll have that conversation. But first things first, let's dive into topic number 1 here, Beyond the Blast Doors, episode 68. So glad you're with us in this moment, talking Star Wars, part of our Star Wars conversation. We are talking about The Mandalorian Unmasked. This is a great exclusive that we got from Entertainment Weekly. And this article dropped a few days ago, and it really caught a lot of people off guard because first, the images that drop, we don't have those on your screen. We will describe them for you. The first thing that I think a lot of people noticed was the different looks of the Mandalorian. It looks like this look will evolve here in the first season that we're getting on November 12th when Disney Plus drops. And in just a moment, Jesse's going to break down the colors first because he believes that they could be hinting at some storyline elements based on what we know of Mandalorian lore in the Star Wars galaxy. But first things first, my gosh, Jon Favreau really grabbed my attention because, and he said this a few times, but just the recommitment to this idea that when I watched the cantina scene in A New Hope, well, I want to know what's bringing all these other guys to the cantina to have a drink. Like, what's their adventure? We know the story of how, Luke and Ben show up trying to find a ship to get off of Tatooine, but what's the story behind all these other characters? Like, I'm really curious about that. And I just didn't know if that triggered anything with you guys when you were reading this article. I'll start with David. When you hear Jon Favreau talking about that, Dave Filoni even mentions, like, it's just the idea of having your action figures and getting to play with those characters. And if you had Boba Fett, you were always guaranteed to come up with the best story.
To me, this is outrageously astounding because my first introduction to Star Wars was actually Empire Strikes Back with the Yoda scene at Thanksgiving when I was in 2nd grade. But then once I watched that, I had to go back and watch A New Hope. So I sat there with my cousins and my family, and we watched it. Well, I watched it. They were opening presents and doing other stuff. I was outrageously transfixed on the screen. And we get to this scene, and there's all sorts of cool characters because we've been dealing with humans and robots, but now we get a variety of different aliens. So to me, that's going to be the most exciting thing to me is the diversity that we're going to see coming into the galaxy. We'll have our main character, and I'm looking forward to see who he has to fight and kill. And
we're talking about $100 million, 8 episodes in this first season, and it joins a growing slate of products here for Disney Plus. We know Cassian Andor in 2020. We're getting the Clone Wars early 20. We're going to get now Kenobi that we know about. We'll talk about that later in the newscast. I said newscast, but later here in the podcast. The Night Job, because we have an idea of when that event is actually taking place on the canonical timeline. But there's so much content, but there seems to be just the driving force right now is behind the Mandalorian because that's what we get the soonest or get that earliest. I love this notion. It's Star Wars that we've never seen before. They did a great little interview with some of the cast members, and they were just talking about how it's a grittier Star Wars, the way it's shot, the way it looks, the way it feels. But at the same time, it's kind of the same. They used similar shooting practices that they did with A New Hope. And it was really cool to hear the cast members talking about, whenever they're talking about like practical effects or when they're talking about how the type of film or the type of camera angles, there was a real emphasis placed on it needed to feel like that original trilogy, which I think it tugs at the older fans in a nostalgic standpoint. But just from a feel, Rogue One is my favorite Disney era Star Wars movie. Okay, that was the same. These are the same words we were fed in 2015 with Rogue One. So if I'm hearing these same things again, I'm really, really excited.
Favreau describes it as, in this EW article, it's like after the Roman Empire falls, or when you don't have a centralized shogun in Japan, and of course the Old West. So a lot of times we can throw the Old West out there because we're very familiar with that, but the fact that he's throwing these other allegories in there too about when the Roman Empire fell and the centralized shogun in Japan, I mean, that tells me that they've really done their homework, really done their research, and they're going to give us some really good stories that are going to cross all of our cultures.
Right. They're going back to the things that inspired Lucas when he was trying to come up with how to do Star Wars in the 70s. And that's really cool because now we've got 40 years of experience. Like we've watched this for 40 years, right? So we know what inspired George and where it went off. So can you go back and watch what inspired him and take a different tangent or a different branch to approaching the Star Wars story? With what we've seen already, like I'm all in. Yeah, it's clearly Star Wars that we've never seen. Stormtrooper helmets on pikes. I love just the variety of species that we're getting that we talked about. But Jesse, this is what I'm really excited about, and there's a few more things in the article that we can talk about. But what I really want to look into now is you've paid a lot of attention to the look of the Mandalorian, and you had one look, and now in this new footage and these new photos we just got with Entertainment Weekly, we're seeing 2, maybe 3 variations of armor on our we'll call protagonist right now. So you have this information regarding like the colors that are displayed on his armor. What do you think that means as far as the story that's going to unfold? How does that tie in, you think?
So as far as the Entertainment Weekly photos, what we're actually seeing here is what I'm dubbing his upgraded armor. At Celebration, they made it clear that the Mandalorian or the Mando was going to spend time. He was going to do this throughout the course of the show. So just at D23, they had one set, of his armor. What we've seen the initial promo photos, and that particular set. It's you can tell that it's I want to say like scavenged bits and pieces, maybe like Stormtrooper armor, but the color schemes on these have been repainted to suit his own needs, or maybe to distinguish that he's not an Imperial. But I just kind of thought it'd be fun to maybe look at the colors that were chosen for that initial promo armor, like what he's initially
wearing.
Get
into it,
and kind of compare that to some of the Mandalorian lore. Now, so this is expanded universe. This doesn't necessarily mean that this is canon,
but this is stuff that influenced Favreau and Filoni.
Yes, this is
wanting to tell these stories of the Mandalorian.
And and they mentioned in this article that they are going to be diving into the culture of Mandalorian. So it would be neat to kind of see some of these elements come in. So I took the time to kind of look at the colors on this armor, and so most of his armor's got kind of a reddish, could be kind of a dark brown, but in some of the lighting you can definitely get a red tone. And red is the color of honoring a father, and that doesn't mean like their father's dead. It just the memory, or carrying on in a sense. And then blue, he's got hints of blue on his armor, and blue in Mandalorian culture is reliability.
Okay.
Now it's interesting enough what we know about this character just from the sizzle reel.
The first
he's
trailer.
a talented bounty hunter. He's seen as reliable. So it's interesting that he's got this color on his armor,
and not just reliable that way, but we also know that he's going to be teaming up with Gina Carano's character.
Yep,
and
Cara
so
Dune.
there's going to be this this relationship. Is he reliable for that partner? That'll be cool to watch too.
He's also got some gray, color schemes in there, which is a color of mourning a lost loved one. And then there's also on his armor, there was a little bit like of an orange plate on the boots. And orange is a lust for life,
Really?
Like a craving to experience life. Again, this is not canon or anything official, just kind of a theory. But I thought it was a little fun to kind of look at what's out there in the EU and seeing if maybe that it has any sort of driving force into the show, and it'd be kind of surprising if it does.
I think it's really great. I don't know. Like I said before, I don't know how surprising it would be though, because Dave Filoni has been exploring Mandalorian culture going back to Clone Wars. I don't know why I tripped over those CULs. Now Favreau though, he's been talking about how since he was like 9 or 10 years old, he was writing stories about the Mandalorians. And always intrigued with Boba Fett, had the fewest lines, but the coolest guy. So I think it'd be really fascinating to see, one, if what you just said is incorporated, two, if it's consistent with what was in EU, and then also I think it's great for I think of the Mercs. This could be a really cool opportunity for them to bring a lot more stuff into canon. It could also be a pain in the butt if your armor is one way and then canon says it's something else.
Not so much.
Really?
Actually, yeah. This show is actually a really good thing for us Mandalorian cosplayers, because oftentimes when I'm at an event, I get referred to as Boba Fett or Jango Fett. It was actually funny at Celebration. Steve, he's another part of the the
Mhm.
crew, but he took a side by side photo. I was standing next to a Django Fett cosplayer. It's just like, see the difference, please.
Well, and you mentioned before the show that Favreau and Filoni very vocal. This isn't Boba Fett. The common fan, the lay fan,
Yeah,
thinks that this is still a Boba Fett movie that he's somehow appearing in. They've both gone on the record saying Boba Fett will not appear.
yes, and especially in this Entertainment Weekly article, they've outright said it. This is not Boba Fett. This is a completely new character. And the thing is that George Lucas told Filoni, Boba Fett is not Mandalorian.
He's a clone.
He's a clone. Okay, now, and this goes for Jango Fett too. Yes, Boba Fett is wearing Mandalorian armor, but he's not born into it.
Mm-hmm.
He is, and Filoni says it. He's influenced, maybe indoctrinated into the culture, but he's not.
There's a lot of leeway there.
There's a lot of leeway there, but this is not Boba Fett. I've been seeing this in a lot of different.
I just always assumed that he wasn't, though, because I just was like, he just probably just ganked the armor like his dad did.
Mm-hmm. So, and the cool thing back to the pictures here. So his new armor is chrome, and one of the things, and especially in the Celebration teaser sizzle reel that we got, he's given a bar of Beskar, which is Mandalorian armor.
Mm-hmm.
It's great stuff. Look it up.
A bar of Beskar?
Beskar.
Beskar. What do you mean by like a bar? Like a
think
a
like
weapon?
no,
Or
like
soap?
Like
iron ingot.
So like a chunk of metal is what he's given.
Yeah.
So he has to go
really
forge
wrong.
his own armor.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of interesting because it's also part of Mandalorian culture, forging your own armor. Sabine Wren talks about her armor in Rebels, that how she's forged it to herself.
Sabine Wren, of course, the beloved character from the Rebels series.
Oh, yes.
4 seasons of glory.
So, I mean, it's interesting because, his armor is progressing through this show. These 2 shots in this article shows this upgraded armor, and it looks sharp. I'm loving it.
It's going to be really fun to explore, and I think I'm really excited because obviously it's a passion of yours, Jesse, but for someone who doesn't know a whole lot about Mandalorian culture, I go back to what Favreau said and what we said at the beginning of this conversation. I want to see these other bounty hunters. I want to hear their story. I want to see how they engage. But this post Return of the Jedi era, to me, is so interesting. It's always been the area on the Star Wars storyline that I've been most intrigued by because where do we leave Luke and all that? They're at the campfire, and now they have to go out and fix the galaxy. It's like, well, how do they go out and do that? Like, what's happening in the galaxy? And it's not just the Empire trying to clean up its remnants. It's listen, these bounty hunters, they're trying to get their claim as well. So it's going to be fun to watch that play out.
Exactly. And that's the thing is this is its own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting is, when you see like movies like a superhero movie and you see like a building collapse, they're like, ooh, that's really cool. And you're focused on like the villain and the superhero fighting. And you don't really stop to think of what happens to the people in that building or, how that's impacted their lives. So I kind of feel like this is how this show is like, okay, so the rebellion's this is 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and and how long has the Empire been in control? Now it's gone. Things are falling apart, just like Dave Filoni's like it's the Roman Empire collapsing,
and you'll have
almost like a dark age,
like the Empire and the rebellion. But I really don't anticipate seeing, like I just hear them, I see them being spoken about, but I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of involvement with them, just because I think that they're really trying to tell you a separate Star Wars story here. I'm really excited. Real quick though, I just want to point out that they did talk with Giancarlo Esposito about his character Gideon. Moff Gideon. And I have an excerpt, and I just want to read it real quick because this is the character that I know the least amount, but he seems to play a pretty big role here in the trailer. So he is an Imperial remnant of a very fine officer who then switches to become sort of a guardian of the people. And then he was talking about how his favorite scene was that he got to climb into that TIE fighter. But what does Gideon really want? The guy is going to be a big player because he has an idea of how to keep order. And that's going to kind of be the theme of this whole, at least season 1, and maybe probably the whole series, if we're being honest with you. How do you obtain order? How do you make order in a galaxy that is so fractured right now? So we want to know what you think in this moment right now. You're watching live, comment in the live chat. You're watching the rewind, comment in the section below. You can always Facebook, Twitter, Instagram us. But there is so much to talk about The Mandalorian before that first episode drops on November 12th. And I love the color breakdown that Jesse did. Obviously, share that with all your friends. I think that's a really cool conversation starter. Is could those colors really play a factor or a hint at what happens in that show? I think that's a question we ask you right now. Like, do you think those colors will basically tell the future? You're like a fortune reader over there,
Or
Jesse.
could just tell a little bit of the character's past too.
I want everything. I want the entire series spoiled on this episode just now. That would be great. Let us know however you want to communicate with us. Let's talk about the next thing, which this is kind of big in the Star Wars world. You'd think we would be going to another TV series for Disney Plus, but we're talking about Legos because the UCS Star Destroyer dropped. This was within the last day and a half, and this it was all over my Twitter. And they had teased this on social media with this commercial of this shadow coming across the room, and then that was just an excerpt from the actual trailer showing this kid playing with the Star Destroyer.
Adult.
Oh, that's right.
It was an adult, like full beard and everything.
Do you think that was intentional? They're targeting
I think
the
it's
adult?
100% intentional.
I think this was the father figure of the household, and then he discreetly just shoves everything off the shelf.
I believe it. There's a lot of parents out there. In fact, Pete Fletzer, who's a friend of the show, has his own show Around the Galaxy, which I would definitely encourage you to listen to.
Hi, Pete.
Pete, six months in, this guy has established an incredible Star Wars conversation himself, talking with some of the greatest names in the Star Wars community. And he bought his son for his birthday today a Lego Tantive 4 $200 Lego set that Pete is currently building. So that's how that worked out. It's for the kid. It's for his son.
But Dad gets to
build
it.
This is a $700 Millennium Falcon. We have a slideshow that
Star Destroyer.
Or what did I say? Millennium Falcon?
That was $800.
That was $800.
This is a value compared to the UCS Falcon.
And you know what? For $100 extra, you get a few extra things in that Millennium Falcon that you don't get in the Star Destroyer that we'll dive into. But you're seeing images right now on your screen. This thing is
I love
massive.
the little baby Tantive 4.
The little baby Tantive 4.
Can I just say that that's adorable?
Well,
it's like a minifig spaceship.
When we're talking about play features here, and by the way, this is for ages 16 and over, 4,784 pieces. You get 4,500 VIP points. It's double if you pre-order. So that's a special that they were doing, which I think a lot of VIP members probably jumped on, because when's the next chance you're going to get 9,000, almost 10,000 VIP points? That translates into dollars. This is just ridiculous, though. When you're looking at this thing, and again, I said it's 4,700 plus pieces, okay? This is the 75252 Imperial Star Destroyer, and it is just ridiculous with all the cannons on it, the ability that has the docking bay. We mentioned the swiveling guns, the tilting radar dish. So there's these aspects on the outside that are really cool. But I think it's the size that is so interesting. We're talking about 17 inches high. We're talking 43 inches long. We're thinking 26 inches wide and over 14 inches high without the stand. And the stand is pretty massive because you have the stand that's for the main heavy part, the rear.
Yeah.
But then there's also like a little leg that comes out here for the front, right? Because it's going to be heavy. It's going to tip over. When you get to the size and scale of this, okay, yeah, this does rival as far as a table. This will take up a lot of the space compared to the Falcon that I mentioned earlier. But when you look inside, and I'm not showing pictures in the inside because it's not even worth showing you the interior of the Star Destroyer. It's just like the Connect skeleton, or not Connect, but Technic pieces.
Yeah.
It's kind of a letdown. And I remember when we were having the conversation about the UCS Falcon, and it's the same kind of thing. If you just want a really detailed exterior set, then yeah, your money is going to get you exactly what you want.
And that's what I want.
Yeah.
The Millennium Falcon, I was upset because you got these scenes, but then they cheated you on the hallway and they were stickers. And it's for $800, you couldn't figure that out. Well, now you're looking at the Star Destroyer. It's $100 less, but there's just no interior. It is just that outside. They don't try and build you the bridge. And maybe that's fine, but I always thought that the cool thing about the UCS, because you could still put a pilot in the TIE fighter. You could still put a pilot in the X-Wing fighter. You do get too many figures with this. It looks like an officer and a captain or a crewman. I don't remember the official title they gave with them. But, from outside visually.
They don't even get seats in the thing. They're outside washing the windows.
But I think, though, this is in line with this UCS series that is definitely for the adult collector. It's not like, your dad loves you or your mom loves you. He's gonna, you're gonna buy Johnny the 8-year-old the UCS. No. This is mommy and daddy's Lego set. and maybe adults that aren't us don't play with their Legos all the time and switch them around the room having star battles. Maybe they're just meant there to be on the shelf. And
Do
if
you
that's
have a
the
lot of
case,
star battles when we're not here?
sometimes that Republic gunship has swooped around this living room a lot. It is a really cool set. David, I feel like I've been negative about it. I think outside it is stunning, just like the Falcon. On the outside, it looks awesome. I'm a little underwhelmed by the interior. What do you think? I'm going to stop talking.
So, I'm a huge fan of anything Empire because the Empire did nothing wrong. And so for me, this set is what I wanted when I got the First Order Star Destroyer that's up here to my right, David's left. So while I absolutely enjoyed building this thing, and this thing is definitely a hoss, it's a very heavy thing. And quite frankly, I'm going to put it on my shelf, and very rarely am I going to get it out and actually open it up and tinker with it and play with it. So the inside to me is not very important, but I'm also a shelf guy, and I work a lot, and I have a lot of hobbies, so I'm not at home a whole lot.
Well, and that's a good point too, because like I think about the AT-AT behind David. I don't necessarily care about the inside because all it is superstructure anyways. I want the outside to look accurate.
Yeah.
So, okay, I kind of jumped the gun there. You're convincing me. I'm coming around. I mean, again, you have to find the $700 to buy that set. But again, that's what to participate with this Ultimate Collector Series set, that's what you got to do. It's like the Lego Creator buildings, those modular buildings. Those Lego sets are $200. But that's Legos for the big kids.
Yep.
Jesse, are you buying this, or are you still content with your UCS Slave 1?
I'm still content with my Slave 1. And the reason for it is with the Slave 1 is that if I really wanted to, there's a cockpit space for Boba, and the cockpit rotates the chair. There's a playability function there. There's a cargo hold for Han and Carbonite. Now, thinking about it, though, there is a good portion of the interior that does seem like an empty space where it's just structural parts, where I feel like if they did spend a little bit more time, they could have maybe, added like maybe a larger like cargo hold play area.
So it's really easy to do what if now that you've seen the final thing. I will say this. It does look great. I love the box art, for example. The box art is awesome. I love those. And the way the back of this looks, especially, it looks like they've taken the model straight out from the VHS, like straight off the movie. Like, it looks that detailed, that good.
It just in comparison to the UCS Falcon, because, they had one of those on display at Celebration, and it's nice. Then again, that's the thing, is you can pop some of the panels off.
Scenes.
You've got an area. You've got scenes.
How cool would it have been if they would have done the interior? And I think here's the problem with the Destroyer structure is like we saw with David's First Order Star Destroyer. You had to support the shell of it, right?
Yeah.
But if there was a way to where they could have done it, it would have been cool if they would have just done just the bridge, where you could have had the two spots, had a couple minifigures on both sides, had a nice bridge. You could have had the Emperor and Vader there with maybe Tarkin. But again, now you're talking about going to a set also with, instead of 2 minifigures, now you're talking like 7 or 8. And of course, you know how that impacts the price as well.
On the flip side of that, though, I guess the plus side of this being hollow on the inside is, there's lighting. There's
the Empire.
Well, there's lighting kits. So
that'd be really cool.
You could
That'd be really sweet.
spend a little extra money in there and get a lighting kit going for it. And flip of a switch, the engines light up, and maybe like the bridge is kind of got the glowing lights or something.
That would be really cool.
Did you see that Disney just came out with another Disney themed set? It's the train station.
Yeah.
And so it's a train with like the engine and then 2 or 3 carts and then like a decent station building. It's kind of cool. It's like a blend between California and Florida. But they include the battery pack, and like a lot of people are like blown away at the price because it's like $300-something. But that's because it includes all this track and includes the battery. So I think it's probably better, honestly, that Lego went this route. Here's a $700 set. This big thing, if you want to light it up, if you want to, make it a little bit fancier, you can do that on your own at your expense.
I don't know if the $700 price. It's a great shelf piece. Looks great. The price point's what's kind of stopping me. It's at the most I'd be willing to go maybe $600.
Because Falcon was
Really?
Falcon was 7,500 pieces.
That's a month of rent for me.
And that's assuming that I actually had them,
Oh, if I had the money, I'd pay $700 for it.
The Falcon, though, because it's got a little bit more detail on the interior, and I think it actually comes with a number of minifigures too, right?
Yeah, it will. Oh, well, yeah, it came with You got the like the sequel
Hunch.
trilogy versions, and then
Yeah.
you got the original trilogy, which also probably factored into that price a little bit higher.
Yeah.
That Falcon, by the way, 7,541 pieces. It is the largest Lego set ever released by Lego.
And how much is what's the piece count for the Destroyer?
It was 4,700 pieces.
Okay.
So
Which is
there's
still really,
It's
really
almost
cool.
like a 2,000 part difference
closer
there.
to 3 than 2, but yeah.
You know, so I just don't feel,
Did I say
100
that right? I'm not good at math.
$100 less than the Falcon. I mean, if you're going to spend that kind of money, I'd almost say go with the Falcon.
We got some people saying stuff in the chat real quick, so let's go ahead and check in with that.
Yeah.
Snowbug778 says, maybe I like the Clone Wars Lego sets better, and it is a lot of money. You know, I said this on the last episode. I am really disappointed that we're not getting more Clone Wars sets with its 10th anniversary. My thinking is you are going to get, we've already got the October slate announced. We talked about that on our last episode. We have that video right now on our YouTube channel if you didn't watch that yet. But we're going to get early 2020 set. There's going to be something that's like in February, which is when we think Clone Wars is going to drop. So maybe we start getting it there. But I'm totally on board. This would have been a great opportunity for a UCS, maybe Republic Cruiser, or it could have been
Venerator.
or I don't know if the gunship could really be a UCS model. I mean, sure it can, right?
I think you're right. As far as the Clone Wars sets, I think you'll see something for the spring and summer because, I mean, it's February 2020, final season.
And keep in mind, Mandalorian's coming out again November 12th. We keep saying it because it's getting close.
And they've already announced
Only one set.
Yeah.
And it's an ATST Raider. Like, it's not...
Give it time,
there's
friends.
time.
Give it time.
I think we'll get more sets for the Mandalorian. I'm crossing my fingers
Triple
for his
Force
ship.
Friday, that's coming soon.
Yep. We may be lucky and get something then. And maybe it's a thing, too, where Disney's trying to keep things under wraps for the Mandalorian and the next season of Clone Wars that they don't want to pass along
Don't
images.
let this man fool you as some sage, wise old man sitting on a bar stool, okay? This man will always complain about not being able to binge a show. Yep. Now he's being patient for the Legos to drop or the what? Well, probably because we're not buying the Legos. That's why we
I
don't
can't
care.
afford them.
Well, that's true. That's why you get them as gifts.
Yeah.
You have a Y-wing to build now, don't you?
I do. That's next on my list.
You live such a good life.
Yeah.
We have Ryan Savage in here as well. And I don't know. Apparently, they're having some kind of conversation in the chat. Okay, whatever. Let's go ahead and go on to our next topic. By the way, let us know. What do you think of that $700 Star Destroyer? Let us know in the comments below. Now on the show, we have Kenobi back, which is always exciting because anytime we can talk about Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, it is a good time. And what the nugget here is, and we'll talk about it briefly, and it was mentioned on the Star Wars show, so shout out to the crew there, the Emmy Award-winning Star Wars show. We're not there yet. The 8 years after Revenge of the Sith.
When are we able to self-nominate ourselves for an Emmy?
We are just not even close. But with you listening right now, if we could get just more people listening and then upper quality. And
I mean, we're the #1 Star Wars podcast that my mother doesn't watch, so that's got to be an award for something.
Is that what you would qualify as self-deprecating?
No, maybe.
I think. Anywho, I think this also might be a tangent out of D23. But 8 years after Revenge of the Sith, so this does kind of give us a better idea of where all this is placed for story. When you hear that, Jesse, does your mind go anywhere specifically? Because when I'm thinking about 8 years past, okay, so we're after, I guess, Charles Soule's Vader series. We're before Rebels. We still have a young Vader. I don't know. You're at a spot where I guess the stories are plenty. I would love the idea of Inquisitors somehow being implemented in the story. And I'm not sure how you feel about that, but if the Inquisitorius were still around 8 years after Revenge of the Sith, I think that could be a fun challenge for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Give him an enemy to fight.
Yeah, it's in the expanded universe. They talk about how Uncle Owen didn't want Ben coming around after an incident that almost got everybody killed or something or the other. Obviously in Rebels you had the final confrontation between Maul and Obi-Wan. I don't think we're going to see that in the live action at any point. You're not going to see those two characters clash. There's just enough in the Rebels, Clone Wars, various books to go, that's not going to happen. Inquisitors though, definitely a possibility. It'd be interesting to see if Obi-Wan maybe travels around a little bit, maybe trying to see if there's other survivors, trying to help other survivors, get into hiding or something like that.
David, what do you think about this? When you think about just getting the confirmation it is 8 years after Revenge of the Sith, does this spark anything different, or are you just like, okay, that's when it's going to happen, still no idea what's going to happen?
No, this to me is really, really exciting because this means, because how long did Obi-Wan kind of hide out? About 19 years.
Yeah.
So this is almost halfway through his tenure. So is he going to be like going crazy because he's been by himself on a desert planet? Is he going to be off on adventures and keeping track of Luke while he's gone? There are just so many ways they could go with this, so many ways that Ewan could portray the character, that they could take the story, that to me were full of infinite possibilities, and I'm super stoked.
What would it mean to you if Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson came back and you get to see some afterlife training happening between
I
him?
think that'd be stellar. I don't think we'd see him. I think if we follow kind of the lore that's been set forth in the books, like from a certain point of view, we would hear him as opposed to see him.
And I think it was Clone Wars where he was like Force bugs.
Yeah.
Force bugs.
You know,
that's what I'm saying. That's not
I
real
kind of
term.
take from that he figured out how to communicate from beyond, but didn't quite figure out how to project himself.
Okay.
Because even when they redid Return of the Jedi, they didn't put Qui-Gon in there, but they have everybody else that he would have taught, how to deal with that in theory.
Really good point.
So I don't know. That's what it's always meant to me. So I would love to hear him come back and kind of be the Yoda, the guiding force, you're not done learning yet, Obi-Wan. There's still more cool stuff we need to teach you.
It's just kind of an odd thought. I wonder if, like appearing like that has more to do with actually, it's some like, if I didn't know like David, I wouldn't be able to maybe appear to him, or anything like that. Like some like actual like
Some bond.
some sort of bond where, like you mentioned the Return of the Jedi thing. I mean, Luke never knew Qui-Gon. So maybe, not really able to appear. There's no actual connection, physical connection.
That's an interesting idea.
I
mean, that sounds a lot better than George Lucas and it's not thinking up Qui-Gon Jinn at that time.
It's just, a little crazy theory, but...
What do you think about this continuing conversation that a lot of people really do want to see the Obi-Wan Maul duel in this series? And again, it cannot happen because it's in Rebels, which takes place after this point in time. If this is 8 years, this is 11 years prior to the events of A New Hope. Rebels is a year before the events of A New Hope. There's no way the episode with Obi-Wan killing Maul is here on the timeline, and this TV series on Disney Plus is all the way back here. So I just don't see it happening. And again, it is my understanding that since we leave Maul in Clone Wars, and we're going to get more Maul in Clone Wars with this final season, he has been on the hunt for Kenobi. That's what's driven him mad. When we find him in Rebels, he's back, right? He's been trying to find Kenobi this entire time. So if they bring him here, I think it would really disrupt the canon that they've already put in place, and that's a big deal because it's been such a priority, and that's what they've been touting. You just had Kathleen Kennedy at D23 get up on the stage and point out that you have the Age of the Republic and Rebel Alliance, the Rebellion, the Resistance, and how all these things plot out on the canon timeline. Okay, if you're going to continue updating, well, we got to stay true to that, right?
The interesting thing, you mentioned this too, and looking back at Rebels, so he's back in Rebels, and yeah, he's on the hunt for Obi-Wan. And here's the thing, he's an enemy of the Inquisitors as well.
Yeah.
So there's no alliance there. And what little we do know about Maul and what he's doing is, if you look at the Ahsoka book, you know that up until Order 66, in which we're going to see this, the Siege of Mandalore and this final season coming up, but Ahsoka is deployed with the 501st to Mandalore to deal with basically Darth Maul. Order 66,
Death Watch, right?
Yeah. Order 66 is ordered. Handful of the clones, disobey this order. Ahsoka fakes her death. Captain Rex actually fakes his death as well. They go off into hiding, and then Maul. We're not really sure. I think we'll see what happens to Maul. At like between Clone Wars and then obviously he's running the crime syndicate in the Solo movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will kind of give us a little bit of a, fill in the gaps between that little timeline. But from the end of Solo to, Rebels, we're still a little bit drawing a blank. I can see him maybe bounty hunters, hey, I'm wanting information about this person.
I could see,
but you're not going to see them on screen together at any point.
I could really, I could see like a flashback somehow to a Clone Wars moment, but it won't be that final death scene. I just don't see that being recreated. But hey, you know what? Maul at the end of Solo was a pretty fun surprise, and would love to see them do more with that. Right?
I would.
It'd be nice, like make Solo 2 happen.
3 years ago, you would not have been able to convince me of that, but I now I am.
If there is one thing that movie did well that I think everybody can universally accept, it's the fact that you brought Maul back. Like you have, what is he doing? What is he doing with Kira? Like that's a movie or maybe a Disney Plus story that could happen. Going into the live chat, it looks like Snowbug is really excited for Kenobi. We got Aggressively Relaxing joining us with us now, and he says, I am hyped for Obi-Wan. He was my favorite Jedi for a long time, but now it's Freddie Prinze Jr. So, right, because he was Kanan in Rebels, and he crushes that role.
Let's not forget about our new Jedi that we're going to see in November with Jedi Fallen Order. And I'm drawing a blank on this character's name, but I'm excited for this game.
Oh, right, the video game.
Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order's
out.
out.
That escaped Order 66, and he's going around. That demo round that I played was really fun because you're going around Kashyyyk.
Cal
Kestis,
yeah.
And it's the guy that plays
Cameron Monaghan.
Yeah, he plays the Joker or whatever in Gotham.
Jerome in
I
Gotham.
mean, I know him from Shameless, so what does that say about me versus you?
That you have a lot more time on your hands to watch
This is going to be
TV.
a really good holiday season for Star Wars. Mandalorian, Fallen Order, Mandalorian episodes in that game are going to take you straight to December 20th for Rise of Skywalker.
Think about being at Star Wars Celebration. And the next time people are at Star Wars Celebration, they have seen Resistance, seen Mandalorian. They have seen Clone Wars. They have possibly seen some Cassian Andor, and they have played the game.
I want to go to the next one so bad. It's just money.
West Coast is expensive.
Yes, it is. Cali's an expensive place, but
So, what do you think about Kenobi? What antics will
Kenobi.
he do? I want Kenobi to wear that Clone War armor. Like, I don't want this to be inappropriate, but at the same time, like, it would be kind of cool if, like, you saw him, like, he got, like, back in the armor. He's like, that's right, I was General Kenobi. Just like,
it would be kind of cool is maybe he does go off planet and runs into Commander Cody.
oh, that'd be interesting. I want Cad
You
Bane.
shot me off
I
my
want
mount.
Cad Bane back. Cad Bane, the blue bounty hunter from Clone Wars. I want him used better. I think that'd be really cool. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Hit us up Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. What you think about Kenobi? Last topic, episode 68. Beyond the Blast Doors. Having this moment with you, having the Star Wars conversation, whether that's live on YouTube or you're listening to our podcast right now, whether that's on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. If you can listen to us or listen to a podcast, you can listen to us there. Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, Age of Resistance. That's where we're at right now when it comes to this macro series. We've been talking about it for several months. It's been a fun journey. But if I'm being honest with you, I think that the Age of Resistance has been my least exciting for me. And I think it's just because I have a really hard time with the sequel trilogy because I'm more critical of it. Like when the prequels came out, I just ate it all up and I was like, oh, it's Star Wars. It's great. I love it.
Do you think it's because it's like Age of Resistance? It's kind of like present time where the Republic and Rebellion, it's just like kind of looking in the past.
Yeah. Yes. And it's also because it's like that headcanon that you created when you were like 15, 16 is not what's happening on screen. And so you're just like, you have to like reassess, okay, this is what happened. What? You keep rubbing your chin. Do I have like a hair hanging on my chin?
No, I didn't shave today and it itches. But I don't think you want me to sit here like...
I didn't shave the day.
No.
Either.
See, if I came on here with like facial fescue, you'd be like, you look like a dirty pirate hooker.
Well, Jesse looks like a dirty pirate hooker. You look like you got a 5 o'clock shadow at 9 o'clock at night.
Well, I'm Italian. It happens. Listen, we're talking about comic books. And I mentioned the whole Age of Resistance thing because I just read Hux. That was my latest one that I read. And, it's interesting. You have Hux and Kylo together, which is always a fun dynamic. It fuels a lot of different theories about those two, whether they're friends or whether they're lovers or whether they're foes. Listen,
Huxlow?
Twitter allows for anything and everything to happen. But it's really interesting because these two get basically marooned on this planet, and Kylo and Hux have to kind of team up to save each other. And Kylo saves Hux at one point. They come across this guy who is from Alderaan that had escaped.
Snap.
He had escaped before the destruction of the planet, and he had camped out on this planet. He's been on this planet this whole time. And so Hux starts saying, "Well, we are with the saviors of the galaxy, and this is Ben. This is the son of Princess Leia. You can trust us." It's really fascinating, but
Wow.
it's like you have Hux going about this, but then you have like Kylo being a little manipulative. And what I really liked, and I want to take this quote from the comic. It's this conversation between Snoke and Kylo at the end. And so Kylo asks why Snoke keeps the general around. And he says, men like Hux are useful. Men consumed with ambition, fueled by spite. Pups who are abused often become vicious creatures, but they never forget where they came from. And they never forgive. Brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking that as an excerpt. And we can tease it now. We can tease it later. It's fine. At some point, though, we want to flash up there. Marie Wilson over at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com did a great review of this comic issue. And she also did one on the Age of Resistance Poe Dameron, which I was not as a fan of. I think I just have a problem with Poe in comics.
How many ships did he blow up?
I think one.
Well, he's not really responsible for the first one on Jakku.
I still think he's a liability.
Well, you know what, though? They lost ships in the comic. I mean, to go on a little bit of a rant. During the comic book series that Charles Soule did, a lot of ships were destroyed there. Yeah, I think The Last Jedi, that bombing run was a bit of a failure. But I just think I've decided I don't like. I think I just can't read Poe. I think I just like Poe on the screen. I like Oscar Isaac a lot. I like that character on screen. So I'm going to stick there. And that's why I chose this comic, and I would recommend it. I think that Hux is such a complex character that we don't explore enough, and I think a lot of people dismiss after The Last Jedi. But this is a person that is vying for appreciation, vying for order, vying for rank. He wants power. He sees that he has an opportunity to have control and do what the Empire couldn't. Have complete control over the galaxy. He thinks the First Order is that vehicle, and I guess that's why I'm so excited for the Rise of the Skywalker, because I want to see the evolution of that character one more time and see, who is the real Hux? Because there's that theory out there that he could actually be a turncoat, and he can actually be so mad at Kylo and how Kylo is leading the First Order that he actually helps the rebellion or the resistance. I'm kind of confused still, because at the end of Last Jedi they kept calling themselves the rebels again, but whoever the good guys. That he goes and helps them. So that could be very interesting. Mm-hmm. I'd be okay if that bad guy turned good. I would not be okay if Kylo turned good.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Do you well, you know what? I'm not even going to ask that question, David, because we have like 3 months of comics that we're catching up on. Mm-hmm. So, like, David, what's a comic that's grabbing your cojones and really exciting you?
So, the one I want to talk about tonight is Jedi Fallen Order.
Nice.
Dark Temple.
Yes.
So this is a lead up to the first person game that we're going to get, Jedi Fallen Order, that comes out this fall. Mm-hmm. So really, really cool artwork, really cool storyline done by Matthew Rosenberg, came out just a couple days ago. And we kind of get like 3 little stories in there through this comic. The first little 6 pages or so is a little prequel. We've got an Inquisitor. She shows up. She rabble-rouses some of the... gives some trouble to some of the stormtroopers, and then goes guns blazing because she's heard about a potential for a Jedi. So it kind of starts this in media res, and then it jumps us backwards, and we get 2 little short stories focusing on Jedi Padawan, I'm going to butcher this name, Sira Junda, and her master Cordova. And so it starts off, they're on a little peace talk on an alien planet, and
he's like an older Jedi, right?
He is, and so he walks into the tent, to negotiate this peace talk. And outside, you've got the Padawan Junda and a droid, and there's some fun little banter back and forth. What are they saying? Well, it's very impolite. My protocol won't allow me to say it out loud. Well, I think I can get what he's saying, and it ends up where she says something wrong, her attitude's wrong, and they get into a fight and she kills them all. So then she gets reprimanded by the Jedi Council, and they send them on their next little mission, which takes them to another planet. And then
You don't have to read this comic anymore because David's telling you all about it.
Yeah, I
I
am.
love it.
But you
You're
know,
excited.
they get into another kerfuffle, and that's kind of how it ends.
So they're going. So this is before Order 66 still.
Yes.
So that's
no.
interesting.
This is after after Revenge of the Sith.
How did they go back to the Jedi Temple
How
or the
did they-
Jedi Council?
Very carefully.
You're right. So it is before Order 66.
So that's really interesting too. So this
So-
comic series is leading us up till
So I
that
guess
time period,
I guess it starts us with the Inquisitors, and then it goes back into the time of the Clone Wars.
and that would make a lot of
Is
sense.
they don't give you a timeline on it; they just tell you planets that they go to.
Well, and the
where
one
they are.
cover had is it the second sister that's the real threat here? The second sister is the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
That's kind of pursuing
really
everything.
cool looking.
A really cool design. Kind of reminds me of the seventh sister that we get in Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
But that helmet is a little bit more angular. So and that's how I would describe it. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for that. I don't get into reading like the background stuff for video games. You know, when like Age of Republic came out, or Knights of the Old Republic came out. Like I wasn't into reading the comic books that surrounded that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But since this is so new, maybe that would enhance my experience. I'm not sure. I didn't read. Oh, you know what? I take that back. You know what I did read? Before we played Battlefront 2,
Oh, Inferno Squad.
I read Inferno Squadron,
Mm-hmm.
and I read the. I also read the Battlefront book, the first one, and that was an exceptional read as well. So okay, so I have read those books, and that was worth the time. So I guess I'll take your word for it. I'll read that.
This one, if you're gonna play the game, I would recommend this one because they're on a quest to figure out this new potential Jedi temple, and it's not going well.
Well, and you know what's interesting is so that comic book series is getting you ready for the video game. We can't get to Galaxy's Edge anytime soon. And Jesse, you've been reading a couple of those issues, right? With Doc Ondor?
I've been reading Crash of Fates. That's a novel.
That's right.
And I am enjoying that.
Okay.
And Doc he's hilarious, but he's a little bit of a jerk.
And he's the collector that's kind of like
He's like a
central figure
collector,
for Galaxy's
yeah.
Edge. Yeah.
On the flip side, though, the comic that I read was Target Vader.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it won't be as detailed because I can't remember
that's
stuff. I'll
honestly,
have
that
to
was
read
a
it a couple times, but
that was a soliloquy
the
right there.
basic summary is there's this group that is apparently selling weapons to the rebellion. Vader is trying to hunt them down, but he also keeps running into bounty hunters at the same time. And he's just like destroying all these bounty hunters and all these people, like easily. Palpatine's getting mad because Vader's not finding who's behind, these weapon sales. And then you flip to like this cyborg bounty hunter. And for starters, the artwork is just actually really good for this series. So it deals with the underworld a little bit. You get to see a few familiar faces. Dengar pops up, and he immediately gets punched in the face by this character, the cyborg that I
Deserves it.
can't think of the name for whatever reason.
That's okay. Gives you a reason to go buy the comic still.
Yeah.
How does this compare, real quick, to like the Vader Dark Visions? Because that was a series that we were kind of caught off guard by because it was these 5 different tales of Vader, and there was like that one where the fangirl on the Death Star. It was just strange.
Well,
you like this better?
I'm liking this better. It's kind of nice because it kind of repeats. I don't want to say it repeats some of the plot points that like Charles Soule's Vader run did, where Palpatine was secretly basically putting hits on Vader.
See, that's I think always the most fun.
Yeah. But this is a little bit different. Again, artwork seems really good. I'm gonna have to reread this, because it's been a chaotic week, and honestly, my focus was on the Mandalorian all week. And I think these guys can definitely attest to that. So
There's just so much, and that's why we're just having to work a little harder. I think it's staying up to date on these things, and we'll get back to weekly reports in the comic books, but it's just we're coming off our break. We're here at second episode of season 3, having a great time. And just really excited to see. It's also, I think, really fun. This conversation shows the variety, like the interest here, where we gravitate towards with comics. So that's really awesome. Gentlemen.
Episode 68.
Episode 68 is in the books. And before we go, we kind of led it at the beginning of the episode, there was a graphic made. Congratulations to you, for us, for everyone. 3,000 subscribers, a really cool milestone that we reached here at Beyond the Blast Doors over this past week, and it's come from a lot of work from the three of us, but also Jordan, who is our director and technological visionary. He has a lot of titles.
Technical wizard.
We should make we should do a credits crawl at the end of this. That would make so much sense. You have Steven and Steven down in St. Louis helping us with branding and with our con coverage and all that. Our merch. It's just been a really cool collaborative effort to see this thing grow, and we're going to continue growing.
We've got 2 Davids, we have two Stevens, we have a Jordan and me. So we need another Jordan, we need another Marie, and we need another Jesse.
Ooh, that's good. Hey, shout out to Marie. Seriously, beyondtheblastdoors.com right now, there is fresh with content. She just put up 2 comic book reviews that I mentioned earlier in the show. She is crushing it. Just got back from Dragon Con. You mentioned, what's the book that you're reading?
Crash of Fates. I was actually reading it because of her.
It was such a great interview last week, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So she hyped up the book that she's reading right now, got Jesse reading it. She's going to have a review for us on the website here shortly. So really excited to get her take on it. I think we'll have her back so we can do a deep dive on the book. Of course, we'll get Jesse some time to finish up and have a really cool conversation about that. But just a big thanks to you for being a part, being active in our Star Wars conversation, whether you're with us on the live stream, you watch us on the rewind, you listen to our podcast. It's just really cool. And it's really cool to see this thing keep growing, because we're literally just 4 dudes in a living room talking about Star Wars, surrounded by a lot of Star Wars merch. And, when I say it out loud like that, I start to think to myself, I really could sell this a lot better. But it is a lot of fun. We had Hot Pockets and pizza rolls with ranch. It was Hidden Valley Ranch. It was good stuff. And you know what, boys? We just hit an hour. So I think for episode 68, that's going to do it from the Beyond the Blast Doors studios. Be sure you join us next week, where we are going to, I think we can do a deeper dive into maybe some comic books. But if you ever have ideas what we should be talking about on the show, be sure you let us know. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It happened. I started losing my voice. Beyond the Blast Doors, episode 68 in the can. Hit us up. We will see you soon. May the Force be with you.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.